Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. In a week that saw tax cuts making their way into Australians' pockets and widespread allegations of corruption and potential criminality in the CFMEU, the economic sentiment improved but did not translate into support for the Labor government. If a federal election were held now, the coalition is ahead of the ALP, 51 to 49% on a two-party preferred basis. And the coalition would be favoured to form a minority government with the support of minor parties and independents. The coalition's edged further ahead as these allegations, first aired by investigative journalists on current affairs show 60 Minutes, have engulfed the CFMEU and centred particularly on the state of Victoria. In fact, even before the allegations became public, the high-profile head of the Victorian branch of the CFMEU, John Zetka, was forced to resign his position. And these allegations have dented support for Labor in Victoria, where the swing away from Labor to the coalition was the strongest of any state, plus 2% on a two-party preferred basis. We'll see in a minute consumer confidence is also now lower in Victoria than any other state. On a primary level, the coalition increased its primary vote lead over the ALP with support up 2% to 39.5% and well ahead of the ALP on 31.5%. Support for the Greens was up 0.5% to 13%. Support for One Nation was unchanged at 5%, and support for other parties dropped 1.5% to 3.5%. And support for independents dropped 1.5% to 7.5%. Roy Morgan government confidence jumped significantly, up 8 points to 82, its highest level for nearly 6 months, but still well below the neutral level of 100. The increase followed those stage 3 tax cuts in early July that have now flowed through to the majority of income taxpayers. Now, a reduced majority of 52.5% of Australians say the country's going in the wrong direction. That's down 3.5% this week. 34.5% say the country's heading in the right direction. That's an improvement of 4.5%. Consumer confidence. The ANZ Roy Morgan consumer confidence increased substantially, up 5.9 points to 84.4. This is the biggest weekly increase for more than 3 years and was broad-based, with all of the 5 questions of the index increasing significantly. Again, the increase followed the stage 3 tax cuts in early July. However, longer-term consumer confidence has now spent a record 77 weeks below the level of 85. That's almost 18 months. This week, inflation expectations came down a little, 0.1% to 5%. So the ANZ Roy Morgan Inflation Expectations Indicator now shows Australians expect annual inflation to be 5% per annum over the next 2 years. Longer-term inflation expectations have been remarkably stable and have stayed within a narrow band of 4.8% to 5.3%. for 33 weeks. That's since early December last year. And now to the latest figures on mortgage stress. The latest Roy Morgan mortgage stress figures show an increase of 88,000 in June to 1,602,000 mortgage holders, just over 1.6 million, or 30.3% of all Australians with a mortgage being at risk of mortgage stress. Despite this increase, the level of mortgage stress remains lower than it was earlier in the year. And looking forward, there's some better news for mortgage holders. The stage 3 tax cuts began hitting the pockets of income earners in recent weeks, and this extra income will make a difference to levels of mortgage stress. Almost every Australian earning a wage will have more money coming in, and the rise in household incomes will place downward pressure on mortgage stress. And this is borne out by the projections for mortgage stress that Roy Morgan's undertaken for July, August and September. There's no need for the Reserve Bank to, in either August or September, increase interest rates. But even If the Reserve Bank were to raise interest rates in both months by a total of 0.5% to 4.85% to counter persistent inflation, there would be 24,000 fewer Australians in mortgage stress due to those stage 3 tax cuts. All eyes will be on the next monthly inflation figures from the ABS due out next week. Only if this number increases and is higher than expected will there be further interest rate increases to come later this year. The next meeting of the Reserve Bank to consider interest rates is in early August, 2 weeks' time. And that's a wrap. Thanks for your interest this week in Roy Morgan's latest results, and I'll be back next week to bring you the most up-to-date readings on consumer confidence, inflation expectations, and voting intention in Australia. Thanks for listening.